The Galactic Council chamber was, as usual, full of itself. Quite literally, given that most species present had evolved multiple sets of everything: limbs, eyes, and most notably, egos. The chamber's sweeping crystalline architecture and floating platforms were designed to inspire awe, though at the moment they were mostly inspiring a headache in Dr. Eleanor Kovac, Earth's ambassador to the Council. "And so," droned Zexthrax, his forearms gesturing in what he probably thought was an elegant manner, but really made him look like a malfunctioning windmill, "we must consider the implications of providing advanced military technology to—" He paused dramatically, all three of his nasal slits flaring in barely concealed disdain. "Species #4872. The chamber's floating platforms bobbed with suppressed alien laughter. Dr. Kovac resisted the urge to roll her eyes, singular eyes, thank you very much, which worked perfectly fine despite what the multiocular majority might think. "The humans," Zexthrax continued, pronouncing it like someone trying to cough up a particularly stubborn hairball, "have only achieved faster-than-light travel within the last century. Their current military capabilities are—" He gestured to his neural interface, projecting an image of Earth's latest battleship. "Well, I believe the technical term is adorably quaint." More tittering from the assembled aliens. One Meraxian actually fell off their platform from laughing too hard, though they caught themselves with their anti-grav belt. Show off. Dr. Kovac stepped forward on her platform, her diplomatic robes swishing in what she hoped was a suitably dramatic fashion. "Councillor Zexthrax, while we appreciate your thorough analysis of our technological status, I must remind the Council that humanity has repeatedly proven itself—" "Oh yes," Zexthrax interrupted, his secondary arms clutching his midsection in what passed for alien mirth. "You've proven yourselves quite adept at what you call pizza delivery and cat videos. Truly revolutionary contributions to galactic civilization." The Council's archival drone dutifully updated Earth's entry. "Species #4872, notable achievements, development of circular food items, and documentation of small predator activities." "I warn you," Dr. Kovac said, her voice cutting through the laughter like a plasma torch through butter. "You might find humanity's capabilities surprising, particularly when it comes to protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Is that a threat, Ambassador?" Zexthrax's middle eye narrowed while his outer eyes widened, an expression that made him look permanently startled about something slightly to his left. "Not at all, Councillor, simply an observation. Humanity has a rather intense reaction when it comes to children. Any children." She smiled, the kind of smile that made several council members unconsciously check their personal shields. "But I'm sure that won't ever become relevant to our distinguished council's deliberations." Motion to deny species #4872's request for military technology sharing. All in favour? Zexthrax called out, pointedly ignoring her warning. The chamber lit up with affirmative votes, a constellation of dismissal. "Motion carried," Zexthrax announced with smug satisfaction. "Perhaps in another century, species #4872 might be ready for—" What was it? Ah, yes, big girl and boy technology. As Dr. Kovac's platform descended from the chamber, she made one final observation. "You know, Councillor, humans have a saying, pride comes before a fall, though in space I suppose it's less of a fall and more of a voidward trajectory." Behind her, the Council resumed its important business of being monumentally pleased with itself, blissfully unaware that they had just made what humans technically termed a very big oopsie. The archives would later mark this as the last day of what became known as the era of underestimating humans. What followed would be referred to, at least by those who survived to refer to anything, as the time everyone learned to stop messing with Earth. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. It took exactly 3 standard galactic weeks for everything to go spectacularly sideways, or, as humans like to say, for the excrement to impact the rotary atmospheric circulation device. The first incident occurred on Starbase Zenith, the kind of prestigious space station where the galaxy's elite sent their offspring to learn important life skills like advanced quantum mechanics and how to look down on less advanced species. The disappearance of 3 Meraxian cubs from their luxury quarters initially caused more embarrassment than concern. After all, How could anyone possibly infiltrate the station's state-of-the-art security system? Absolutely impossible, Chief Security Officer Vixital declared, his fur bristling with indignation. Our systems are designed by the finest minds in the galaxy. Why, even a human could understand how impenetrable. He never finished that sentence as the station's lights chose that exact moment to flicker ominously. When they came back on, the security footage for the past 6 hours had mysteriously transformed into what appeared to be an Earth entertainment program called Dancing with the Stars. The Meraxian delegation was not amused. Before the Council could properly work itself into a diplomatic frenzy over the first disappearance, 15 Kentaurian offspring vanished from their colony on Proxima 6th. The Kentaurians, being a species composed entirely of living crystal, took particular pride in their supposedly unbreakable security lattices. Their defensive systems were literally coded into the crystalline bedrock of their colonies. The security logs showed nothing except a curious audio file of something called "Never Gonna Give You Up." Dr. Kovach's communication terminal began lighting up like a hyperspace Christmas tree. First came the angry demands for explanation, then the suspicious accusations, and finally, most tellingly, the worried inquiries about Earth's child protection protocols. "I assure you," she replied to each message with diplomatic precision, "humanity is equally concerned about these tragic events, though I feel compelled to point out that so far, all affected species were among those who recently voted against sharing military technology with Earth, but I'm sure that's merely a coincidence." The pattern became impossible to ignore when the Kulari creche world went dark. The Kulari, who had been particularly vocal about humanity's primitive emotional attachments, found their most secure facility completely empty. All 123 juvenile Kulari had vanished, leaving behind only a datapad playing an ancient human video of a cat asking, "Icon has cheeseburger." The council chamber, which had been so full of laughter just weeks ago, now resembled something closer to a panic room for overdramatic aliens. Zexthrax's platforms kept bumping into each other as he paced, all forearms waving in increasingly erratic patterns. "This is clearly some sort of coordinated attack," he declared to the assembled emergency session. "Though obviously not by the humans. Their technology is barely advanced enough to manage interstellar travel, let alone bypass our most sophisticated security systems." Obviously, Dr. Kovach agreed pleasantly from her platform, which somehow seemed higher than usual despite no one adjusting it. "Though I feel obligated to point out that humanity does have rather extensive experience in protecting children. All children." The Council's archival drone attempted to update Earth's entry but appeared to be struggling with an unexpected file labeled baby_Yoda_memes.exe. The final straw came when 3 entire colony worlds went silent within the same standard hour. No distress signals, no signs of violence, just silence. The only message received was a short video playing on all emergency channels, a human infant sleeping peacefully while something called a Mozart lullaby played in the background. Dr. Kovach's office began receiving a new type of message, gone were the accusations and demands, replaced by increasingly desperate pleas. "Dear Ambassador," read one particularly frantic note from a Kentaurian elder, "perhaps we were hasty in our assessment of human military capabilities. Would you be interested in discussing technology sharing over dinner? Please respond immediately, please." Another message, this one from the Meraxian High Command. "What do you want? We'll give you anything, just tell us the cubs are safe." The most telling was a simple text transmission from Zexthrax himself. "You knew, didn't you? All this time, you knew exactly what would happen." Dr. Kovach's reply was equally brief. "Counselor, humanity's first priority has always been the protection of children, all children. Though I have to admit, for a species as primitive as us, we do seem to be rather good at it. Would the Council care to reconsider its position on technology sharing? I believe I can fit you in next week. Perhaps we could discuss it over pizza." The galaxy was about to learn an important lesson. There are 3 things you don't do if you want to survive. You don't tug on Superman's cape, you don't spit into the wind, and you absolutely, positively don't mess with children when humanity is watching. And humanity, as the galaxy was about to discover, was always watching. Aboard the US Nightshade, Commander Jack Harrison was having what his team affectionately called a thermonuclear migraine, the kind that usually preceded someone having a very, very bad day. Today, that someone was going to be the Kulari crime syndicate. Run that by me again, Lieutenant Chen, Harrison growled, staring at the holographic display showing hundreds of DNA sequences, and try to make me less homicidal this time. Lieutenant Chen, whose actual first name had been replaced by Magic Fingers due to her unprecedented hacking abilities, pulled up another set of files stolen from what the Kolari thought was their most secure server. They really needed to stop using password 123, translated into their native tongue. "They're running genetic experiments on the kids, sir," she said, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface, "trying to create some kind of super soldier program. The Meraxian cubs for their enhanced strength, Kentorian offspring for their crystalline regeneration, and the Kolari's own children for their telepathic abilities." "And the Council?" "Neck deep in it, sir. Well, for those species that have necks." She pulled up financial records that would have made an accountant weep. "We've traced bribes to 37 council members, including our old friend Zekthrax. Turns out voting against human military tech sharing was just a smokescreen. They needed to keep us out of their space while they conducted their research." Harrison's Ghost Protocol team, officially designated as non-existent and unofficially known as humanity's biggest middle finger to galactic politics, had been tracking these patterns for months. Their ship, the Nightshade, was technically a myth, much like human competence in the galaxy's eyes. "Dr. Marcus," Harrison called to their xenobiologist, "what's the status of the rescued children?" Dr. Marcus looked up from his medical bay console, where he'd been monitoring 342 alien children of various species. "Stable, sir. Though I have to say, watching the Kentorian kids try to play peekaboo with the Meraxian cubs is simultaneously the most adorable and most terrifying thing I've ever seen. Those crystal facets really reflect light in interesting ways." The Nightshade's AI, nicknamed Mother because someone on the development team had watched too many old sci-fi movies, chimed in. "Commander, I've completed analysis of the extracted data. You're going to want to see this." The holographic display shifted to show a complex web of connections, communications, and money transfers. At the center was not the Kolari syndicate as expected, but a familiar three-eyed face. Well, well, well," Harrison muttered. "If it isn't Counselor Three Eyes himself, guess all that laughing at primitive humans was covering up something nasty." "Sir," Lieutenant Chen called out, her voice tight, "I've cracked their research logs. They weren't just experimenting on the children. They were trying to create biological weapons. The kids were just phase 1. They needed young subjects because their genetic structure was more adaptable." The temperature in the command center seemed to drop several degrees. Even Mother's usual humming seemed angry. "Location of their main research facility?" Harrison's voice could have frozen plasma. "Surprise, surprise, it's on Zekthrax's private moon, the one that officially doesn't exist, kind of like us." Chen's fingers flew across her console. "They're calling it Project Evolution. Very original. Want to know the best part? They're using outdated Earth sci-fi movies as inspiration for their genetic modifications. They literally tried to recreate Wolverine using Meraxian DNA." Harrison pinched the bridge of his nose. "So you're telling me that a bunch of corrupt council members, led by our three-eyed friend, partnered with a crime syndicate to kidnap children and turn them into comic book characters?" "Yes, sir, though they seem to have skipped the part about how most of those experiments went horribly wrong in the movies." "Right," Harrison straightened up, his expression shifting to what his team called his "someone's about to have a really educational day about human capabilities" face. "Mother, send everything we have to Dr. Kovac. Lieutenant Chen, prepare a full tactical analysis of their facility. Dr. Marcus, make sure all our guests are secure. We're about to do some redecorating of Zekthrax's private moon." "Sir," Dr. Marcus called out, "the Kentorian children wanted me to give you something. They, made you a crystal sculpture." He held up what appeared to be a slightly lopsided attempt at a human thumbs-up sign. "They said it's for saving them. The Meraxian cubs added the glitter." Harrison carefully took the sculpture, trying not to think about where they got glitter in deep space. "Mother, add this to the ship's permanent display, right next to our Primitive Species of the Year award." "Already done, Commander. Also, I've taken the liberty of preparing what humans call a mixtape for our upcoming operation. I believe Another One Bites the Dust would be appropriate for our entrance." As the Nightshade prepared for what would undoubtedly be a very educational experience for certain council members, Harrison couldn't help but smile. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the kind of smile that reminded you that humans hadn't evolved from apex predators by accident. You know, he said to no one in particular, for a bunch of advanced species they made some really basic mistakes. First rule of the galaxy should be, don't mess with kids. Second rule, don't assume the quiet species is the harmless species. And third rule, don't trust anyone who needs 3 eyes to see what's right in front of them, Chen suggested. That, and always check if the primitive species you're mocking has a Black Ops team parked in your orbit. Harrison picked up the crystal thumbs up, now shedding glitter all over his uniform. Mother, send a message to Dr. Kovac. Tell her the Ghost Protocol team is ready to make some noise. Message sent, Commander. Should I also inform the Council that their primitive problem is about to become significantly more educational? Oh no, Harrison grinned. I think we'll let that be a surprise. After all, everyone loves surprises, especially corrupt politicians with private moons. The Nightshade's engines hummed to life, completely invisible to every known form of detection. It turned out that being primitive had its advantages. No one ever expects Stone Age technology to include quantum stealth systems. It was time to teach the galaxy why humans had survived so long on a death world. Not because they were the strongest, or the fastest, or had the most eyes, but because no one, absolutely no one, messed with children on humanity's watch. The Galactic Council's emergency session was interrupted by what could only be described as a massive technological mic drop. 5,000 primitive human warships decloaked simultaneously across regulated space. They had always been there, hidden behind what humanity casually called quantum camouflage, a technology that the galaxy's finest minds had declared theoretically impossible. Then again, those same minds had also declared it impossible for humans to master faster-than-light travel before inventing proper tentacles. Dr. Kovac stood on her platform, which now hovered ominously at the chamber's center. The smugness radiating from her position could have powered a small sun. Let me introduce you to humanity's actual military capability, she said, gesturing to the massive holographic display showing the human fleet. Though I should warn you, some of these ships have been watching you for so long they've named all your security drones. That one's called Sparkles. Zexthrax's 3 eyes were doing their best to look in 3 different directions for escape routes. All of them were blocked by what appeared to be heavily armed, primitive vessels. But your technology, he sputtered, all 4 arms gesturing frantically. The database showed... Oh, that, Dr. Kovac smiled. We wrote that database entry ourselves, uploaded it right after first contact. You really should change your security passwords more often than once per century. And maybe not use "I am the smartest species" translated into ancient Kalari. The chamber erupted into chaos as the full scope of human deception became clear. Floating platforms bumped into each other like confused space debris as council members tried to process how thoroughly they'd been played. High above, aboard the U.S. Nightshade's bridge, Commander Harrison watched the panic with professional appreciation. Mother, how long have we been parked above the council chamber? 3 years, 4 months and 17 days, Commander. Though I still think we should have named their security drone Twinkles instead of Sparkles. Project Nightshade, humanity's most ambitious military program, had been active since first contact. While the galaxy laughed at Earth's primitive technology, human stealth ships had been mapping every corner of regulated space. They documented corrupt dealings, prevented 3 potential wars, and collected enough blackmail material to make a Kulari information broker weep with joy. Lieutenant Chen's voice carried across the bridge. Sir, Operation Bedtime Story is in effect. All human vessels report ready. Also, the Kentorian children want to know if we can play hide-and-seek later. They say they've been practicing their camouflage. Tell them after we deal with the grown-ups, Harrison replied, watching as human ships took up strategic positions around every major council facility. Mother, initiate broadcast on all frequencies. The message that played across every communication device in regulated space was deceptively simple. This is humanity's primitive military speaking. We've been watching, we've been listening, and we are very, very disappointed in your childcare practices. In the council chamber, Dr. Kovac was thoroughly enjoying herself. You see, Council members, humanity has a rather unique perspective on evolution. We didn't become Earth's dominant species through superior strength or natural weapons. We did it by being really, really good at watching, learning, and then thoroughly surprising our opposition. She pulled up detailed schematics of human stealth technology designs, so advanced they made several Council scientists faint. Our primitive quantum camouflage doesn't just bend light. It exists in a state of quantum uncertainty. In layman's terms, our ships are simultaneously there and not there until someone tries to detect them. We call it Schrodinger's warship. But the pizza delivery, one Council member weakly protested. Oh, we really did revolutionize pizza delivery, Dr. Kovac assured them. Maintaining galactic peace is important, but perfect crust composition is sacred. Across the galaxy, human vessels were systematically locking down corrupt facilities, securing evidence, and ensuring no one could escape justice. The operation had been planned for years, but the trafficking of children had accelerated the timetable. Project Nightshade's true scope became apparent as human operatives emerged from deep cover positions. The Council's chief janitor turned out to be a human intelligence officer. So did three prominent business leaders, 3/4 of the Galactic Media Corps, and most embarrassingly, Zex Thrax's personal chef. Your dietary preferences have been fascinating to document, the chef mentioned as security drones surrounded the councillor. Particularly your weakness for what you thought was exotic Kalari cuisine but was actually human takeout. In orbit, Commander Harrison was coordinating the galaxy-wide operation with the casual ease of someone who had rehearsed this moment thousands of times, because they had. Mother status report. All targets secured, Commander, though I feel compelled to mention that the Meraxian cubs are attempting to teach the Kentorian children something called patty cake. The resulting light show is quite spectacular. The human response had been centuries in the making. Every laughing dismissal, every condescending remark had been carefully logged, analyzed, and used to maintain humanity's carefully crafted image of primitive simplicity. You see, Dr. Kovac explained to the stunned council, while you were busy mocking our primitive ways, we were building something you never considered, a military that could hide in plain sight. Our ships don't need to be detected to be effective. They don't need to be acknowledged to keep the peace. They just need to be there, like a parent watching over sleeping children. The analogy wasn't lost on the council members, who were now viewing their primitive human colleagues with the kind of respect usually reserved for unexploded antimatter devices. Lieutenant Chen's voice carried a note of satisfaction. Sir, we're receiving surrender messages from every implicated facility. Also, the Kentorian children have made crystal sculptures of all our ships. They're surprisingly accurate, though the addition of glitter is anatomically incorrect. Keep those, Harrison ordered. They'll look good next to the Primitive Species Award. In the council chamber, Dr. Kovac was wrapping up her revelation. Humanity never needed your technology. We developed our own, focused on what we do best, watching, waiting, and protecting. You thought our emotional attachment to children was primitive. We saw it as the foundation of civilization. She gestured to the fleet of human ships now visible through the chamber's crystalline walls. Every one of those ships has been assigned to protect specific sectors for years. They've named local stars, watched your children grow up, and prevented more conflicts than you know existed, because that's what humans do. We observe, we protect, and when necessary, we act. And the pizza delivery revolution? Someone asked weakly. Oh, that was just for fun, though you have to admit our crust is superior. She paused. Also, those delivery drones made excellent surveillance platforms. As the human response unfolded across the galaxy, a new understanding emerged. Humanity hadn't needed to evolve past their protective instincts. They had evolved because of them. And the galaxy was about to learn that lesson in exquisite detail. Mother's voice echoed through the nightshade. Commander, shall I update the Council's database entry for humanity? Harrison smiled. Yes, new entry, species hash 4872. Humans. Notable characteristics. Makes excellent pizza. Highly protective of children. Has been watching you the entire time. He paused. Also, add a footnote. Primitive is a relative term. The Kalari Crime Syndicate's main research facility exploded in a spectacular display of what humans called shock and awe, but what the rest of the galaxy was rapidly learning to call, oh no, not the primitives. Commander Harrison's voice cut through the chaos. Ghost protocol teams, Execute Operation Naptime. Let's show them how primitives run a rescue mission. Human stealth ships materialized inside the facility's supposedly impenetrable shields, their quantum camouflage dissolving like morning mist. The Kulari defenders had approximately 3 seconds to realize they'd made a terrible mistake before the primitive weapons activated. They weren't lasers, they weren't plasma cannons, they were something much, much worse. "Are those gravity weapons?" Zexthrax whispered in horror, watching the footage from his detention cell. His middle eye twitched as localized gravity fields turned Kulari battlecruisers into very expensive origami. "Oh yes," Dr. Kovacs replied, reviewing casualty reports with suspicious cheerfulness. "Turns out all those centuries of dealing with Earth's primitive gravity gave us some interesting ideas. We call it the Newton's Revenge system." The rescue teams moved with practiced precision, their primitive armor incorporating technology that made them appear to phase through walls. Each child was located, secured, and evacuated with the efficiency of parents who had done this thousands of times before, because they had, just in simulations. "Status report," Harrison barked as the Nightshade's weapons turned another defensive line into abstract art. "All children secured, sir," Lieutenant Chen reported, though the Kentorian kids are insisting on bringing their crystal toy collection. "And the Meraxian cubs, sir, they're organizing a slumber party." "Let them keep the toys, Mother. Initiate final phase." The human fleet moved in perfect synchronization, their formations spelling out words in ancient Earth military code that translated roughly to "nap time for the bad guys." Zexthrax watched as his carefully constructed criminal empire crumbled under the assault of a species he'd dismissed as barely more advanced than spacefaring bacteria. His private moon base, hidden behind technology he'd thought unbeatable, was currently being dismantled by ships that, according to every sensor, didn't exist. "You know," Dr. Kovacs mentioned casually, reviewing the terms of surrender she'd drafted, "we tried to warn you. Don't mess with children isn't just a suggestion for humans, it's hardwired into our DNA. Rather primitive of us, wouldn't you say?" In space, the battle, if you could call complete technological superiority a battle, was winding down. Human ships had corralled the surviving Kulari vessels into what Lieutenant Chen was calling the timeout corner. "Commander," Mother announced, "the Kentorian children would like to show you their latest crystal sculpture. They've recreated the entire battle, complete with glitter explosions. It's quite accurate, though they've added what appear to be smiley faces to all the human ships." Harrison allowed himself a small smile. "Add it to the collection, and send a copy to the Council's cultural database. File it under primitive art." The last Kulari facility surrendered after watching their unbreakable quantum shields unravel against human technology. Apparently, existing in multiple quantum states at once wasn't so impossible for primitive species after all. Dr. Kovacs stood before the emergency session of the Council, her platform now decorated with crystal sculptures made by grateful Kentorian children. "The terms are simple," she announced. "Full disclosure of all criminal activities, immediate cessation of all illegal research, and," she paused for effect, "mandatory attendance at a human-led seminar on childcare practices." "And if we refuse?" one brave or possibly concussed council member asked. "Then we'll do this the primitive way," she smiled. "We'll sit here and stare disappointedly at you until you comply. We're very good at that." The galaxy learned 3 important lessons that day. 1. Never underestimate a species that considers protection of children a fundamental law of nature. 2. Primitive is not a synonym for harmless. 3. When humans say they're watching, they mean it literally. As for Zexthrax, he got a front-row seat to humanity's childcare seminar. The topic: timeouts, a primitive but effective disciplinary tool. 1 month after what the galaxy now called the Great Timeout, the recovered children had settled into their new routine. The Kentorian youngsters had turned an entire deck of the Nightshade into a crystal garden, complete with glitter-infused sculptures depicting their rescue. The Meraxian cubs had established what they called a permanent sleepover zone, and the Kulari children were finally learning to use their telepathic abilities for something more constructive than eavesdropping, like organizing interspecies playgroups. The Galactic Council chamber had undergone some renovations. Gone were the floating platforms of smugness, replaced by simple seats arranged in a circle, a design that Dr. Kovacs had casually mentioned was primitive but effective. The new council charter was displayed prominently, written in crystal by the Kentorian children. It began, Rule 1, don't mess with kids. Rule 2, C. Rule 1. Zex Thrax, looking significantly humbled with all three eyes focused downward, signed the new Human Cooperation Treaty. The pen was made from crystal, a gift from the children he'd once seen as mere test subjects. They'd even added glitter. I trust, Dr. Kovac said, watching him sign, that we now have a better understanding of primitive human values. Indeed, he replied quietly, though I have one question. The quantum camouflage, the gravity weapons, the decades of surveillance, was it all just to protect the children? Of course not, she smiled. Some of it was to perfect pizza delivery. We primitives have our priorities. As the Reformed Council dispersed, Dr. Kovac added a final entry to humanity's database file. Species #4872 humans, primary characteristics, makes excellent pizza, plays well with children, does not play well with those who threaten children. Technology level, yes. Note, if you have to ask if they're watching, you're already in timeout.